Just to start off, how did you first become interested in music, and when did you start playing instruments or singing?
I got like a summer job. I guess I was always into music. My dad was a musician. He was like a real player though, he was like one of those musicians that could like really play. Um, and I was always kind of like raised around music because my dad was in a band that like toured when I was pretty young. And I was exposed to it, but the type of music that he played was not really, you know what I mean? Not really like the thing. They played like funk and stuff. Uh, but I don't know really when exactly I started being interested in music. I always like really listened to music, but when I started playing, I got a job at my uncle owned a music store in Santa Maria in California. And I was up there for a couple weeks and I just worked for him for like a couple weeks at his music store. And I was like, like polishing all the guitars that were hanging on the walls and stuff. And there was this guy there, he was like a luthier, and I'd watch him like repair guitars and stuff. And I didn't actually want to play guitar when I started playing. I wanted to play bass. And there was a bass there that I was like, well, if my uncle owns this music store, maybe he'll just give it to me, like, and I'd just be in there, like, I'd play and I'd like look behind my shoulder to see if he was like, seeing that I was taking interest in it, but there was no way he'd just give me a bass. And uh, I remember telling my dad about it, and he said that I couldn't play bass until I learned acoustic guitar. He wouldn't let me get an electric. It was super weird, and I was like a little punk kid, like I had a mohawk and shit. The last thing I wanted to do was play an acoustic guitar. So, uh, so he got me an acoustic guitar, and I played it, but I didn't really, it wasn't like exactly what I wanted. So I saved up all my lunch money for like 2 months and I bought this really shitty PV off this kid I went to school with. And my dad was so pissed about that. But yeah, I don't know. I just kind of started playing. I didn't have an amp really at first or anything. So all I had was a record player because the house we were staying in, it was like this weird situation. Like I told you my dad was in a band. The guy that would go on the road with them, he would kind of like, do sound, and he was a big guy. His name was Buddy. My dad ended up like living with this dude after the band wasn't really touring and stuff. And they had all their old records and stuff from when they were kids there. Like it was like Depeche Mode records, like all kinds of crazy shit, that I probably would have never really listened to had it not been. But they had this weird dude. I always forget about this. There was this guy, Pete, that lived in the house at that time too, who had a little four track, and he was like a total like weirdo. Like he was just always, I mean, honestly, if I could compare him to anything, he'd probably be more like me now. But even my dad thought he was weird, but that he lived in the house too. And I remember always thinking that dude was like so cool, his music was super weird. And I don't know, I was just like always in there like trying to impress him too, like playing guitar because he was like the weirdo. So I don't know. Just I didn't really have any friends that were into music or anything at that time either, but I wasn't really writing then. I was just trying to figure out how to play and stuff. So sorry, I was a mouthful.
I good, man.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, your first interest was kind of with bass then.
Yeah. And after my dad got me that guitar, and I got the electric guitar that he was really pissed off about. I think like the next year or something, he got me a bass, and I ended up playing that a lot. I was really into bass, really, really into it. Um, and I don't know, I kind of just like knew how to play guitar and play bass, and I was living in California then with my dad. And my mom moved out here. I had to be like 14 or 15 or something. My mom moved to Tennessee, and she was disabled and asked me to move out here to help her because she wasn't really, able to do a lot of stuff on her own. And I think when I got here, I met some people and one of them had a four track and I had never really recorded music. I had a four track given to me when I was younger, but I didn't really know what it was, or understand how to use it or anything. But then later this time I kind of knew more what it was and I borrowed a keyboard from this guy. His name is Jack and that four track and I recorded like 20 like these weird like stupid songs, like they didn't have any vocals on them or anything, but it was just, like just weird kind of little experiments, trying to figure out how to record and stuff. And I remember showing my family at the time what I was doing, and my grandmother, she's like, what do you need to like, learn how to record or whatever? And she got me a little audio interface. It was like a super shitty audio interface. And I don't know, I just started recording music. It was just this weird thing. I wasn't really trying to, you know, I didn't really know what I was doing or anything, but yeah.
Wait, how old did you say you were at that time? Like 14?
It's like it's hard to remember totally now because I moved out here when I was 14 or 15, I think for like a year or two, and then I moved back to California. And I think actually I got that four track when I came back here after going back to California for a little while.
Mm.
So that had to be like because the guy that I borrowed it from, I had met him when I lived here before when I went to school here for a minute. Um, so I think at that point actually I might have been like 17 or 18 or something.
Okay.
So yeah. The timeline's so weird, it's hard for me to remember because I have to remember that I moved here very weirdly. Like I wasn't planning on moving here, and then I moved back for a little while, and then I moved back here again, and I haven't really left since. So um yeah, I think that was the second time I lived here when I started that.
It is interesting to know like your background story, like the what do you call it? The yeah, like the
Yeah,
origins, behind
yeah,
the the dude that makes the music that I listen to. It's just interesting to know like the starts of it.
yeah. Really strange, like I feel like the types of music that I started with are so drastically different from where I ended up, but like all the things that I was into already, I was already into. So it's like really strange, like making a whole album on like a shitty keyboard that's like, it was like a Casio or something, and then like, doing this other thing. I was like really trying to emulate like the Beatles or something, and then at some point I thought it was like really dumb, I guess, to just be writing like love songs all the time, like I think I realized every song that I wrote said the word love in it and it really grossed me out. And then like I don't know, I ended up uh just doing something completely different, I guess. I don't know, it's weird.
So I wanted to talk about Cool Runnings, and was that your first project?
Actually, I was in this other band for a while. That wasn't anything serious, but the first serious musical thing that I did, I played in a band around here. It was like we were touring all the time, and it was the first kind of experience like that, I guess, if that's what you mean. Like a first like serious thing was this band called Royal Bangs. And we toured all over. We ended up going to Europe while I was in the band. They went back after I left the band, but I think I was in it for like 2 years or something. And that was kind of like while that was happening, Cool Runnings was starting in a way, I guess, because like that whole first EP that we released, minus like one song or something, I think it was just one song, but all of that had been recorded while I was playing in this band, like kind of either in the van while we were touring or like at home in between touring.
Mm.
because like I was just trying to like I had all these ideas, and initially all of those things that I was writing I was trying to write for this band that we were playing because we had somebody who was like a primary songwriter, but it was kind of a thing. I was like trying to write the stuff that I thought would be good for the band, but I don't think anybody liked it. You know what I mean? Cool Earnings was kind of born out of that, I guess. All the being, all the things that I didn't want to do, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking right now. Like Cool Runnings ended up being like the result of Royal Bangs, you said.
Yeah, yeah.
And was the first EP that you put out with Cool Runnings the Buffalo one?
I think one of them got put out, and then like so many people were into it. I was just like, fuck it, let's just put out the other thing. You know what I mean? Because at that point, the band was just me and one other guy. We were kind of writing songs together when it like came out. I had had it up like under my own name for like a year or something, and nobody gave a shit about it. You know what I mean? It just nobody even knew it was there. The I think it was the Babes Forever one is the one that I made. And then Forrest came in and we wrote the last song together on that. And then I ended up throwing it later onto the end of what was already there. But whichever one came first, I can't remember off the top of my head. It was like 3 or 4 days later, I was like, fuck it, let's just put out another one because there's all this music here already. You know what I mean? So um yeah, I don't fully remember. I feel like it's been so long now.
I Am You, the one that Star Slinger remix, and Spirit of the High. Uh, I don't know how to say this one, Belu or
Baloo.
Be Belu. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, those three. I was just curious if you remember what they could have been featured in.
I Am You was a single. It actually wasn't my song. Um, it was there was a guy in the band playing at that time, Elliot White, and he had another band called Young Life. And when Elliot joined, he's like a great songwriter. Honestly, I don't know if he's still like recording music or not, but I always really, really liked his music. And it's kind of a weird thing. He came over one day and I was like, let's just like record one of your songs, like, and we'll just do it like how like if it was like a Cool Running song or something. And he brought that song, but it was already a song that he was like playing with his band. So it was like a weird thing. Like, so our version of it was like very different from like the version that he was already playing it with. There's like that whole bridge in the song that like wasn't there that we kind of added while we were messing with it. And I think that was just a single. We just kind of put that one out by itself. Um, I'm trying to think what was the other one? I know Baloo and
Spirit of the High.
Spirit Eye. Uh, Blue was another one like that. It was actually right after I left Royal Bangs that I made that. I was living in this I had this weird living situation. I was living with this girl and we broke up and she moved out, but I couldn't afford to live there without somebody else living there. So I ended up like putting a bed in the living room and then renting out the 2 bedrooms that we were using when she lived there. So I was like living in the living room and I had my studio up in the living room. And the singer of Royal Bangs was living or renting a room there. And I don't know if you ever like listen to their music, but Persona La Ave, Dylan Dawkins was living in that house too. And I was just like the weird person living in the living room with no privacy. But I remember I wrote it at that time. So that had to be like 2011 or something. I think I put that one out just as a single, but I ended up like taking it back. I'm like really weird about this. I know that I have a really bad habit of doing it. It's why nobody can find my music anymore. But like I'll decide I don't like something one day, and then I'll just take it back, I guess. And I did that with Baloo. And it was like I don't even think it was like on the internet for a really long time. And then I re-released it after like messing with it a little bit more, how I was like playing it live and re-released it as a new romantic song. Um, and Spirit of the High was right before I moved into that house. I released that as a single. It had another song as the other half of it, and that was probably like first more kind of in the directions or the more like electronic direction the New Romantics ended up in was kind of more along that lines. The other song that was on that, I can't remember what it was called right now off the top of my head, but I do remember one thing that's really weird about that recording though, Spirit of the High, is that I didn't have drumsticks. So all the cymbals on that song, this is weird. I was just thinking about this the other night, how fucking weird this is, but we used steak knives and I was holding the sharp ends of them and playing the fucking cymbals
What the
with the like wooden end of the steak knife, like holding it like that. But yeah, that was right before I moved into that apartment and recorded Blue. So that had to be around the same time, like 2011.
dude?
But
Did you cut yourself at all while you're jumping like that?
no, I was like I was holding them like, just the tips of my fingers, But it was like that, you know what I mean? I never had like the shit that I needed. That all like those Cool Runnings EPs, like I don't even think I had a microphone because I was recording most of it like while we were on tour or like, like in weird places where I didn't have like a studio or anything. I was just using the mic on the MacBook for the those first two EPs. But I mean, obviously I ended up, getting an audio interface later.
Dracula Horse was like founded around the same time, like 2009, 2010. But
Yeah.
do you remember more or less how that came about?
Yeah, I had this like idea. I was like, I didn't really, I was trying to kind of get some help from a lot of the people that were working with Royal Bangs after I left, so I was reaching out to a lot of those same people that, the band was working with. A lot of them didn't want to fuck with me at all because, you know, how people are, they're only really interested if you're going somewhere, and that band was going somewhere, and here I was like, leaving that band trying to do something else, and nobody gave a fuck. So I was like, well, how can I sound like legitimate if I'm, trying to, reach out to somebody, set something up or something? And I was like, well, we don't have a label. So I was just like, I'll make up a label. And then, when it started picking up with our stuff, I was like, well, maybe we can include more people that, and this could be beneficial for everybody involved. So like anytime I'd find something that was like I was like this is fucking cool, you know what I mean? I'd hit them up. I'd be like, I don't have any money, like I'm not even trying to like sell your shit. Yeah, initially it just started because we wanted people to think that we were legitimate or something, that we weren't just some fucking weirdos trying to reach out to people, because when you're trying to like reach out with your music, people like they don't take unsolicited shit, most of the time, any legitimate, whatever. So it's like, I could just like pretend like, this is real, so
Yeah, they're more impressed if like a label is behind it or something.
yeah, even if it's just some
Online.
fucking dude acting like he's, it's weird, but it really, I mean, it worked. I didn't think it would work, but then when it started working, I was like, oh shit. This is maybe it is legitimate. I don't know.
You also put out an EP of another project of yours. I think it's called Walsh.
Yeah. Yeah. Walsh was like that was kind of like me figuring out, there were all these like things I was making that didn't really fit with Cool Runnings, and a lot of them were like instrumental. And it was like completely different music, kind of more like synthesizer music or something. And yeah, it's weird. I still make stuff. I haven't put anything out under that since like 2018. I still listen to a lot of stuff that, I was finding at that time, or artists, that ended up going and doing a lot of other things. Like there were a lot of people that put out albums on Dracula Horse that ended up going on to like do way cooler shit too, you know. Or they like ended up getting on like real labels and putting out real albums and stuff.
That first EP, the Walsh one, uh, there there was a track you did with Matt from Elvis to Presley.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
You know, like I said, all that stuff was kind of going on with all the blogs and stuff. And, you know, a lot of the people were writing about his music, were writing about my music. And I feel like I was kind of like, you know, always like, you know, hitting people up on Facebook, you know, like messaging them like, yo, like what's up, you know, and he was one of the people that I was kind of consistently talking to, Coma Cinema. That's what it was. And
Hmm.
I kind of just like by way of that, like I kind of had always like, you know, seeing that he was on all the same shit and I was just kind of talking back and forth with him and I think I just like I made that song in bed like using the keyboard on my computer because I didn't have a MIDI controller with me. I literally just played it out on the keyboard in Ableton. And I just sent it to him. I was like, "Hey man, you want to sing on this?" And I sent it to him and he had it back to me like that day, I think. And I just like, you know, I heard I was like, "This sounds awesome, dude. Like we don't even need to do anything and shit. Like it sounds cool." So it's just a weird thing, you know. That time it was like really easy just to like send somebody something and be like, "Hey, fuck with this," you know, and he was totally willing to do it. So, but I only really met him in person like twice. They played here and I think I don't know what project it was I was in that played with them, but I played with them then. And I saw him a couple years ago actually randomly because I was in this band that played in North Carolina and he just happened to be there and I was like, dude, what's up? You know, like remember me? I don't even think he recognized me, you know. He probably didn't even remember what I looked like from the first time I met him, you know, like but yeah,
I got to see him live too at in my neck of the woods. Yeah, he came
yeah,
down at like a music festival.
yeah. That was pretty good live from what I remember. I remember being like he had a really weird guitar though too. I can't remember what it was, but it was awesome. It was like the whole front of the guitar was a pick guard. And it was a weird ass guitar. It was really cool though, you know. I think I asked him like a couple of years ago what it was. He told me. I don't remember what it is, but it was one of those like weird ass, you know, really cool looking, older looking guitars, you know.
So yeah, Walsh was pretty much like your side project while you were still with Cool Runnings.
Mm,
And the other EP that I saw was karaoke, the karaoke EP.
mm.
And there was a track on it called Birthday Girl.
Oh
Uh,
God.
that one, it gave me like a neon Indian vibe.
Yeah. Yeah, that song's a total ripoff. It like it basically samples like I feel like it's like the intro to an Andre Simone song. And I just kind of like, you know, really warped it, like messed with it. But like, I think I put like a gate on like the sample in it and some delay, and it just kind of sounded so crazy to me. But yeah, that's a weird one. Oh God.
But yeah, this was all around the, I guess, 2010, 2011 time. And
Yeah,
then Dracula is only the beginning came out on July 28th of 2011.
yeah,
Uh, I wanted to talk about the closing song on that, the Fort Kid.
yeah.
I like it because it also, I guess you can say it's like a hidden bonus track. If you listen all the way towards the end of it, you can hear like an acoustic tune. Come on.
Oh yeah, there's two different versions of that album, actually. I don't know if you knew that, but the tape was different. It had a different second song on it, and it had a different, I don't know that it had that actual secret track on it.
Oh,
So I'm not actually sure which one has the acoustic thing on it, to be honest, because one of them has this really shrill like pig squealing at the end of it just out of nowhere to scare the shit out of somebody, and then the other one actually has a song on it.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Also, you put out tapes of it?
Yeah, there was a label. I don't know if there's still a label, probably not, because I think most of those people lost interests and ended up doing something else. But there was a label that put out Wonder Beard tapes. There was a tape, yeah.
I was just curious, like, what made you decide to end the album that way, like acoustically, if you remember.
Uh, that was one of those songs that I had made, like when we I think around the time that the I was making those songs in the van on tour with Royal Banks. It was just one of those ones. I didn't make it in the van. I made it at home, but it was just something I had that I didn't know what to do with, you know what I mean? And I was just like, well, maybe it'll be cool as like a secret track or something, because it was just so weird and morbid. I was like, this could be cool as like something that is different, I guess, at the end. But it was something I had had for like a couple of years at that point, just like rotting on my hard drive. And I was just like, do something with it.
Cool, cool.
I forgot about that song actually. It's funny.
The the single of Full Moon with the B-side Rusk, and it came out also that year. Rusk, it kind of sounds like a psychedelic jam the whole way.
That was like a weird thing. We got approached for that 7-inch by this label, and it was kind of at the moment that that band was just absolutely falling apart. Nobody really hit me up, and just time kept going, and we got asked about that 7-inch, and I was like, fuck, I should just do this because I don't want to like pass up this opportunity. And I couldn't really, I was like inviting people over like when I started doing that, but nobody was really interested in coming, so I just said fuck it, and I did the whole thing by myself. And I think that when I did that, it really kind of like, I think that it kind of rubbed. I think it I know for a fact now that it kind of bothered Forrest, that I kind of did that by myself, but it was like a thing, like nobody's really showing up. And I'm not gonna pass up on a fucking somebody trying to put out a record of like, so you know what I mean? Like, fuck it, no. So I just, I don't know. It was a weird thing, that whole process of those in particular, because I to be completely honest, I was kind of dissatisfied with how the record sounded, like the full length that we put out. I was really hyped when I was doing it, and then when I got it back, the record was like really poor quality when it actually got pressed, and I wasn't happy about that. And it just was such an ordeal going through because there was actually a label on top of our label, and there was a Kickstarter, but toward the end of the Kickstarter somebody wanted to like put it out, so it was like we ended up splitting the costs, and we took the Kickstarter money and put it into our own copies, and then they had their own copies. It was like this weird situation. I don't even know. I haven't heard from that label since that thing got put out, but I was just so kind of uh not really satisfied with the way it sounded, that I wanted to like really hone in on those two songs that were going on that 7-inch. So I went way harder than I normally would. I actually had somebody come in and play violin on it. And I was just like, I'm gonna do this one, and it's gonna be fucking, it'll be like I'm not stopping until it's like I feel like it's perfect. You know what I mean? And I don't know, it's just that was kind of like the end of that. You know what I mean? It was like I think we ended up playing, we played a couple more shows, I think, after that, and we did play one of those songs live a couple times, and it sounded really cool. But I just don't think that that band could have gone much longer after that record came out.
When you recorded the 7-inch, did you play the instrument, all the instruments on it?
Everything but the violin.
Mm.
Yeah, I did the drums and the guitar and the bass and the synthesizers and the vocals and stuff.
You're still staying busy with Walsh, I guess.
Yeah, I was always kind of doing that stuff. I think at that time I was probably shifting more toward doing that kind of stuff too, because at that time, at this house I was living in then, I was again in another situation where I was living with Dylan that does Persona La Ave, and him being around, and he's like that dude. Like, I've never in my life met anybody like that guy, like with music. You know what I mean? Like we haven't talked in a really long time, but like he is like one of the most creative people I've ever met. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things, like you wake up and you hear somebody doing something and it just like you're like, fuck, I gotta do something. You know what I mean?
Like
So I
inspired.
was, oh yeah, and he was like, and I don't even know that I ever told him this, but that dude probably like inspired me so much to get like really into making kinds of music that I wouldn't normally or hadn't thought of making before. And we were making music together at that time. So that's why he's on like a couple of those albums, just on like a couple songs or whatever. Yeah, I think at that time I was really going in hard on that Wash stuff, I guess.
And right now, when you're talking about Dylan, it's like you kind of read my mind because I was gonna bring him up too on that EP, "Don't Want to Fall in Love." You had two songs with him, and that's when I was that's when I was like, "Holy shit!" He did a did some music with this guy, and what I know Persona as, it came up on like a vaporwave playlist on YouTube.
Mhm.
So like, holy shit, these two collaborated. That's wild.
Yeah. Yeah, that guy is like, I don't know how that dude's like not famous. Like I genuinely like it's weird to me that like he isn't like playing in some like famous ass band. You know what I mean? Like because he's like a real player too. He's not just like a really good producer. Like that dude fucking shreds. It's wild. I've never seen anything like it.
You did a couple other songs I saw with him on what was it, on Back to the High Life. He did he was on the song Vibrations.
Yeah. I remember recording that because I was like, hey dude, you want to play on this? He's like, all right. And he didn't even seem like he liked it at all or like that he was interested at all. Like it's literally like somebody walking up and just like taking a shit on your song and it's like gold. You know what I mean? And then they don't give a fuck at all. It's just like a weird, like he's very, very what is the word? He's a different kind of dude. You know, I can never tell if he hated me or if he liked me or what, but I still think he's cool,
Just hard to read this dude.
Very, very hard to read.
And that Back to the High Life EP, the self-titled track on it, I was listening to it and it reminded me a bit of Black Moss Super Rainbow. I don't know if you're familiar with their stuff.
I wouldn't say it's that cool. But yeah, I honestly I don't know what it sounds like. Is it like a like an electric piano or something? I feel like it starts out
Yeah,
with.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's got
okay.
the electric piano
The
vibe.
wow, wow, now. Yeah, that thing. Okay. Yeah, I was at my dad's visiting or something, I think. And he had a MIDI controller from his he worked at University of Laverne in California. And I think he had taken home one of the like student pianos they had or something. And I just hooked the MIDI up to my computer. So you know what really sucks, right? Is like in 2013, like New Romantics actually started out being called Shy Boys. right?
Yeah.
And we released a song and it like blew the fuck up, like real big, like bigger than any of my shit like ever did, like at one time, like ever. And immediately after that happened, I got like a cease and desist from this label in Kansas City of they were putting out an album by a band called Shy Boys. And so we had to come up with another name, right? And so we changed our name to New Romantics, and then nobody knew that we were the same people that like made the song that like blew up.
Well,
And it was this weird situation where like, you know, all the momentum that we had built with that song just completely got wiped by the fact that like we had to change our name in the middle of like the biggest song release, you know, like I mean it was crazy. Like I like still it's like the number one song like on any streaming service that my music's on is that song for some reason, Ride. And shortly after that, where I was like, you know, I had to like convince her because at that time there were more people in the band and it was like a band, you know. And you know, I was like, let's name it after like, you know, a music genre or something, you know. And I really, you know, obviously like I really like, you know, the new romantic period of music or whatever. You know, even that's not what our music really sounded like at that time. But like we when we changed the name, then it was like 2 months after that, fucking Taylor Swift released an album called The New Romantics. And then we're like officially went from being like, you know, this band with momentum to having to change our name and then like being ungoogleable, you know, like nobody could find who the fuck did this song that they liked or whatever. Then we were like, nobody could find our fucking band because fucking Taylor Swift released a fucking album of all people, like, you know, the biggest fucking artist, you know, in the world releases an album with the same name as the band name that we changed. So it's just like just a history of bad luck with that shit, you know, like because I have to like even when I'm like looking up shit, like even though it's trained on shit I search for, if I like am trying to see if anybody's writing about it, I have to put in the New Romantics, Knoxville, Brandon Biondo, you know what I mean? It's like it's unfortunate, but it is like, you know, it's what it is, I guess, you know.
yeah, and I was like, is he aware of this? But I mean, obviously, you're gonna
Oh
be aware.
yeah. But it was like right after we changed our name to that, you know. And we even had the discussion, well, should we change our name again, you know? Because like now this is stupid. Like, but I don't know. I just decided fuck it, you know. Like if people really want to find it, they'll find it, I guess, you know.
Something tells me no, but I'm just for shits and giggles. Did you ever like listen to the song at all by her?
Yeah, I mean everybody's heard Taylor Swift. Yeah, I had you know, I've like historically like worked in you know, kitchens and stuff because, you know, obviously I'm, you know, this look at me. Uh, you know, I'm like a permanent line cook. But you know, I worked, yeah, I didn't really listen to much of her music, but I worked in a kitchen it's like 2 years ago or something where the kitchen manager, she's just like obsessed with Taylor Swift and it'd be like, you know, like the full on 4 hours of Taylor Swift every morning I'd go to work and she was opening or whatever. So yeah, I've definitely heard it. Like,
Dude, have you ever seen the show The Bear?
yeah, yeah, the kitchen show with what's his name? The goblin line cook that everybody loves.
The
Yeah.
Goblin Like
Yeah. Yeah, it's like he introduced, you know, it's funny. It's like when that was happening, when that show came out, all of a sudden it was like sexy to be a line cook or something, you know? Like there's all these people like talking about it, like, get you a goblin line cook, you know?
I was bringing it up because you mentioned that you're a cook, and because of Taylor Swift, there's an episode I remember where one of the main dudes
Yeah, yeah.
sings a
I
Taylor Swift song.
yeah, yeah. I know what you're talking about. That was actually really good, I thought. You know what I mean? I don't, you know, I don't really have anything against her.
But Yeah, going back to like uh Walsh, there was another EP I was listening to that was more kind of like an ambient sounding sound collage one, the Pure Moody one.
Mm.
Um the first there was a track, two tracks, the second and the last one. It reminded me of this artist that I like. He does sound collages too. I don't know if you heard of Monster Rally.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard of Monster Alley.
Yeah, and then well, all the other ones reminded me of Ian, like ambient Brian Eno.
Oh, really? I thought, when I was making it that it kind of just sounded like nature or something, it's probably like the weirdest thing I think. Yeah, I mean, for me, out of all the things I made, it really doesn't fit with any of those things, but that is like one of my most favorite things I think that I've ever recorded, that thing in particular. I don't know why. It's just it has a quality to it that I don't know. And I've tried to like kind of go back to that a little bit, a couple times, and I just can't. It didn't work now. I don't know. So whatever it is, it's just something that's one-off weird thing that existed, for some reason. I don't know. I really like that one though.
Magnolia. This one made me laugh when I was looking at the two tracks that are on it, because the first
Yeah.
one's Culo and then the second one was Creeps.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Culo one made me laugh. I was like,
Yeah, I don't, I can't even explain. Sometimes I just end up naming the song like whatever I saved the file as, and I think that's what I saved the file as. Why? I don't fucking know. I couldn't begin to tell you. I have no explanation for that. But yeah, I thought it was pretty funny.
yeah. And as I was writing my notes, I was like, it'll be funny a little bit more about Culo.
Oh my God.
But the release date that I saw for it was on October 16th. I'm trying to see. I guess it was 2011, and it was the same day as one of the last two Cool Running singles that was put out.
Really?
The Forever with the No Imagination B side came out on that day as well, from what I saw.
I don't remember doing that both at the same time, but I guess that would make sense because I remember recording both those at around the same time. So yeah, I don't remember doing that, but that's cool. It must suck to interview somebody who can't remember anything they did.
I mean,
Like,
it's it's hard for me to remember like what I've eaten or something like the day like
yeah,
day. It's like it's
yeah.
telling myself beforehand, like, dude, there's a pretty big chance that this guy like is not gonna recall everything from like fucking more than a decade ago. Going back to the New Romantics though, so you put out Ride, and I think Julia was the B side on that one.
Hmm.
Uh, when you first started the New Romantics, you were collaborating with Nicole, I think.
Hmm.
Um, so how did that how did that initial formation of the band come about?
We were just kind of living in the same house, and I don't know, just started making music. Like we were friends for a long time before that, so I don't know. We were in a relationship for a while and we're making music, and obviously that is not always the best idea, but we're still friends, you know what I mean? So I don't know, we just I was working on some songs that Ride. I couldn't really come up with anything, like it didn't sound right with me singing over it, so she ended up singing over it, and the chorus that song took something like, it sounds so stupid, but it took like 4 months or something because I just could not like figure out what the fuck to do over the chorus of that song. Like the whole song was like laid out. Typically that's like what I do. I'll like write write like all the music to a song, and then worry about vocals later. And that was just a weird one. It took a really long time to finish. Julia, was like the complete opposite. That song was done in like 10 minutes. It was crazy. Like I just kind of like played the guitar part and recorded it, and like the music was done. And the first version of it, I actually sang everything on it. And when she sang on Ride, we ended up like re-recording it, and she was learning how to play bass, and she played bass on it too. But that song, Julia, was kind of already done and in the bag, and we kind of like just redid the parts with her in it. And I don't know, she was just really easy to work on stuff. She was very creative, so it was like easy for her to come up with stuff, and it kind of gave me a break because I was really kind of at that point kind of tired of like, being the focal point of a band, you know what I mean? So for a while, I think it was something like two years or something, she was like the primary singer, vocalist, like writing a lot of the lyrics and stuff, and she was learning how to play a lot of the instruments. So, I don't know, it's kind of like just like any other band, you just kind of get along, and shit just gets written, I guess.
Mutual collaborative effort.
Yeah, I actually, it's a weird thing. Like I didn't want to do that I didn't want to do Neuromantics. And I remember having this conversation with her about, like I was like, we'll get in-ear monitors or powered speakers, like we were meeting at this bar to like have this conversation, and I was talking about it. She's like, I'm so sick of talking about this fucking band. you know, And I was like, really? It's like that? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, but I didn't even want to fucking do this shit to begin with. And now I'm in it. You know what I mean? And it was kind of a thing, like I think that was just it. You know what I mean? Like the singer didn't want to do it anymore. And I was just like, so then I started working on my own shit again with it, and kept the name and
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, it's just it was really cool. But I think that, everybody ended up doing things that they ended up enjoying more, and it's kind of like, just I feel like that's just kind of my curse, when it comes to bands, it's like getting hyper obsessed, feeling like, this like I gotta have it perfect, because like, obviously I don't want it to suck, but that was, I think, the thing that kind of just threw it over the edge and made, everybody not really interested anymore, because it was no longer just like fun. It was like we're doing this because somebody's expecting something out of us, and now we have to like perform. And it was just a weird thing. I always shit the bed when I'm like expected, to do something that I feel is like kind of beyond what I'm capable of or something, and I think that I probably could have handled it better, but I think it kind of took its course when it was, that iteration, I guess.
Yeah.
So
But yeah, like that was I guess the beginning stages of the band. And you I guess you, like how you said that there's a bit of a curse where where like you don't give a shit about it at first, and then you see potential that it has, or you get like sparks of inspiration, and you're like, this can actually be something. And then
yeah.
uh, and then there's like indifferences or something, like shifts in energy that I'm glad, it was fortunate that you kept it going, though, that you just didn't like give up the project like completely.
I'm not gonna lie, I want to give up all the time. Like I really do. But it's just something, it's like, music is like such a weird thing to me, because sometimes I feel like it's so cathartic. It's like it's something I feel like I have to do. And then other times I feel like, is this like something that I have to do, or is this just something I became hyper fixated on and learned all this shit about that, like, you know should maybe it should have been a passing phase for me or something, and I should have moved on to something else. But unfortunately, it's just like the curse, man. It's like, it's like as much as I hate it sometimes, like I really do necessary for me, probably more so, in the last, 6 months than normal. Because, like as I said, my mom passed away last year. She passed away in July, and I just kind of went, I was like, I could either two things could happen. I could either like, blow up from the inside about this because I really had a hard time when my dad passed away. Like, I mean, I'm still not over it, But when that happened, I was like, well, you know, either that could happen or I could like really try and focus my energy on making something instead of like destroying something, you know what I mean? And had that not happened, I don't think I would have finished that album at all, to be honest with you. Like but it was really therapeutic for me to finish that. And you know instead of going down some destructive path, which is kind of my nature, is like something terrible happens to me and then I just throw my arms in the air and just, run headfirst into a wall. I tried to focus that into something else, So
Well, that's good, man. That you were self-aware enough to be like, well, I can use this pain and channel it into something positive.
yeah,
You
yeah,
made art out of it. You made art out of the pain, and it
yeah,
sounds cliche, but I mean it is a better outlet and a better decision to go through than the self-destructive one. And
yeah.
made like a ranking list of like 10 of my favorite songs by you that are both Cool Runnings and New Romantics. And I was wondering, like, as I go through them, if you could just share like a little tidbit thing that you remember from like the said song.
Hmm.
I'll start with like 10. I'll work my way down. Number 10, Tell You. That one, it kind of it gives me deep Devo vibes when I listen to it.
That was one of the first ones I think that I made after Nicole left. um I was really pissed off. Right. I mean, when it happened, obviously about how like the whole thing worked out, because I felt like I was dragged into some shit I didn't want to be in, whatever. And then the whole thing. And then I was just like, well, fuck it, I can do it by myself. And I was just thinking about the fact, like, how, yeah, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, it's called Tell You, but like how when you really want to like you got all that shit, that you want to say to somebody, but like, like you can't even put it into words because you're so fucking, fucked in the head about something, you know what I mean? There's like just thinking about all these things I want to tell you. I don't know how to tell you, but it's not like a nice thing at all. Like it's mostly just me being like, fuck you. You know what I mean? No offense to her or anything. You know what I mean? But it was like, that's how I felt at the moment that I, made that, it was just kind of the idea is like, like what's the point in even saying these things, you know what I mean? Because they don't really mean anything to anybody but me, and I just sound like a bitch. Like really, being fully aware of that, because nobody really needs to hear that shit. So I was just trying to say, like I don't know. But I mean, the lyrics are pretty self-explanatory. No one wants to be more I do. It's like, but it kind of, I always like that song because it kind of like means two different things depending on where you read the lyrics from. No one wants to be more I do, not think. So it's like a sentence, the beginning of the sentence is also the end of the first sentence. So it's like two different things. I don't know. I always thought that was kind of cool. Sometimes you kind of do something like that by accident and you're like, oh shit, it has two meanings,
Yeah.
even though it's not what you intended or something, you know what I mean? But you're like, I'm kind of smart. You know what I mean? Like one of those things.
Number 9 It's CKSFAR.
That song's fucked up.
Number eight, Liquid Sky.
That was one of the last songs that me and Forrest actually worked on together. The recording that's on the album is not it's not the original that we recorded together. The original he played the guitar and the actually he just played guitar on the original. So some of those parts he wrote, like there's like a thing at the end that kind of goes with the mellotron in it. The wow 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 wow. That's the wrong melody, but you know, the kind of like slidey sounding guitar shit. Uh we had around that time we had gotten together with Scott, the guy that played drums with us for a good while, and we did like a one-off show like after like years of not playing together, and I don't even remember if it was good or not, but that song was like something new for us to play, I guess, so that we didn't just go up there and play a bunch of old shit that nobody, you know, or have something new, you know what I mean? So it was kind of a weird one. It never really like officially got like released. I think I put it on SoundCloud or something, and that was like the only place I put it. And I don't think you could download it from there until I like re-recorded it and put it on the album, the New Romantics album.
So Forrest would like play different instruments as well besides guitar.
When we started the band and it was kind of me and him, uh we both just would switch off on a lot of stuff. Like some songs, like even when we play shows and stuff, like he, you know, I'd play bass on a song and he'd play guitar. We both play guitar. You know, we were always like switching instruments. Everybody in the band except for our drummer. Uh, Scott didn't play anything but drums, but Elliot, who wrote IMU, he was actually our drummer in the band when we recorded IMU. But when he would play IMU, or when we play that song live, like he would play keyboards and sing, and I'd play drums. So it was like that band was always everybody switching around on stuff, just whoever thought they could actually nail a part or whatever. So yeah, Forrest, you know, he's a pretty good songwriter himself. He plays, you know, he does kind of the same thing that I do, you know, ends up like making these recordings and playing all this stuff on it. He's definitely got the weirder brain out of the both of us though. Like the weirder stuff was always definitely like Forrest, you know. I feel like I'm pretty straightforward, but Forrest is definitely like the weird noodle on most of the stuff where it sounds strange, you know.
Number six, The Fool, and that one, um, it was originally conceived as a Cool Runnings recording, I believe.
Yeah, it was like 10 times slower. It was like I always really liked that song, but I never liked the original recording of it because it was so unbelievably slow. I have this real bad habit of like recording things really slow and thinking they're a lot faster and not realizing it until like well after it's like out there. And that one had bothered me for a long time. So, and I always thought it was a good song, but you know, I was never really satisfied with the original. And I figured, you know, because a lot of that Cool Running stuff, it never, you know, passed that Dracula album. It never came out like on a physical release, so I wanted to like do something with it. But yeah, that song was written in like 2011 or something. It's old. It's really old.
Number five, Chorus, like I think it's the opening track on
All I have to say about that song is that when I made it, Animal Collective was really popular.
it.
And I was doing my best Panda Bear, and it really wasn't that great. But a lot of people really liked that song.
Number four, I was going with I Don't Cry.
That was the last thing that I put out. My whole studio had to move during the pandemic, and I moved into a practice space. It didn't end up working out, and then I kind of moved it to the place I'm staying now with my fiance, and uh I just hadn't pulled out my acoustic guitar in so long, and I was like, damn, I don't even know that I've ever made an acoustic song, or like with this thing, And I was like, it'd be dope to do something, kind of like more along the lines of like Echo and the Bunnymen or something like that. It's kind of like the vibe I was trying to do, but it doesn't really sound like that. But, you know, I don't know. This guitar I have, this acoustic guitar, it was this my first guitar. And there's something wrong with it on the inside. There's like some wood loose or something, and it has this weird, like natural distortion. Like you know what it sounds like? You know the guitar on like this is so stupid, but like Neutral Milk Hotel, that like distorted acoustic sound that he
Mhm.
uses on like every song. For some reason, this thing sounds like that all the time. Not even like it's not plugged into anything. It's fucked up. Yeah, I mean it's just an old ass guitar that's been like abused. But I was like, I want to use that on something because normally I'm trying to like avoid using it, or use like an electric guitar or something. And I just wanted to make something that wasn't like that. And I was thinking, what's I don't know. And I liked the idea of like writing a song that's like called I Don't Cry, that's like actually about how you do cry. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of weird. Because like it's called I Don't Cry, but the lyric is like I can't say that I don't cry, you know what I mean? I thought that was kind of cool about it.
So the acoustic that you played it on, was it the first acoustic you said back when you were working at your uncle's store when you were like learning bass?
Yeah, the
And
one that my dad got, or my dad and my uncle got me for it, or got it for me for Christmas like that year, I think, and that was like the first guitar. So yeah, it's the first guitar I ever had. I still
damn,
have
that's
it.
crazy. That's
Yeah.
crazy to hold on to.
Yeah.
Number three, Better Things from Babes Forever.
That was another one of those weird ones that I made, while I was in Royal Banks that I just kind of had sitting around. I don't think it was ever really my vibe, but it was kind of one of those things like I had, and it's just like sometimes I feel like I just need to put something out there so I can forget about it. You know what I mean? And not to downplay, what you're saying about how you feel about it or anything, but to me, I never really, you know, I don't know. I
You
have
weren't
like a weird, yeah, I have like a weird separation with music sometimes where like, like I can make something and still feel like it's not mine.
I like it because it's like just positive.
Yeah. I haven't listened to that song in so long now. I'm curious. I'll probably listen to it later just because I don't even remember. I just remember it being real like, oh, like real kind of silly in that way. It's not really my style, but every now and then I'll be like, I should sing like this, and be like singing some crazy way that's like not normally how I would say, like doing, you know, trying to emulate some idea of something I could be or something, you know what I mean? That's not necessarily me, but some kind of projection of some like, I don't know. I always think of music in that way, like who am I trying to be or something, you know what I mean? Like in
Yeah,
some
like
way, I
character.
guess. Yeah, yeah, I like that. That's kind of goes along with like the story kind of thing. Like, again, like a lot of those songs I think people take literally, probably more so now. My songs are probably a little bit more personal than they were before in the
Uh-huh.
sense that like they probably are more me now. But like a lot of times, that would be like a character or something to me to like escape having to be myself on that. You know what I mean? In a sense. I don't know.
Yeah, I get you on that because there's some songs I'm detached to as well where they haven't even personally happened to me. Like I literally wrote a song while watching like a Nicolas Cage movie and it has nothing
Con
to do.
Air.
Huh?
Was it
Con Air.
Con Air?
No, it was like this weird psychedelic horror movie called Mandy. I don't know if you've heard
Oh
of that one.
yeah, Mandy. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I was watching. I was like, "What the fuck am I watching?" Came up with some weird lyrics to it, and I ended up really liking that song. But um, as I read the lyrics and I'm like, okay, someone's gonna hear this one day and be like, what the fuck are you going on about, man? Like this dude talking about like getting revenge and like a girl
Yeah.
dying and like what?
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, like inspiration can come from anywhere.
The things that people end up latching onto, you can never really predict those things. Ironically, most of the things that people latch onto are things that like either like I didn't really think much of or you know what I mean? And then the things that I thought were really good are things that, like people don't like as much. So it's like one of those things, you know what I mean? Like, you know, shit, there's so many songs that I thought were like bangers, that I made that like just people just like didn't fuck with, but for some reason they like something that I thought was really silly or something. That's just what it is.
I'm kind of nervous to share my next two because you're probably gonna be like, "Oh, that one took a shit while I recorded."
Ah, no, no, no.
Now, the second one is "Hard to Let You Go." That one,
Oh,
it kind of sounds like Gang of Four to me.
that's a huge compliment to me. Yeah, I appreciate that. Uh I that was a weird one because that was the day that we went down to the cemetery to bury my mom's ashes. That's it was like one of those things, like I said, when I was working on that, that was kind of the only way I got through that kind of shit. And my mom had a really complicated relationship. We didn't always get along, and I had a really rough childhood, you know, dealing with a lot of the things that were going on with my mom. Um, and I was just, that song's kind of, you know, grappling with that kind of feeling, like, it's just like, your family is your family, and it's like, people always expect you to have these, regardless of who they, how you feel about them, they're this to you or something, you know what I mean? And that was a thing to me that like, throughout my relationship with her, it was just never easy. And there were, periods of years that we didn't speak to each other because of stuff like that. And it was just it's just a weird thing, putting your mom in the ground and you know being really, torn up about it, but also, kind of feeling like, this is a person who like never really got to know you because, you know, they just didn't have the capacity to, you know. And to me, I'm still struggling with it, honestly. I mean, it's just July 7th of last year that you know, I think that was a big thing with that one in particular is that like you know, it's not necessarily about like, you know, letting go of something that is hard to let go of because you want more of it. It's more hard to let go of because, you know, you don't even know how to feel about it. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So, it was a weird one. I recorded the vocals that day that we put her in the ground, and it was such a fucking surreal, bizarre experience. I went there. Actually, the guy that played bass in Cool Runnings, David Thomason. He's always been my really good friend. I've known this guy since he was a kid. His older sister was my best friend for a real long time, and they were always at my house, and they all kind of had the same experience as my mom. She's a really you know I don't want to speak negatively about her, but she had a lot of like severe mental illness, and like they got to see a lot of that, but also got to see, when she wasn't like that, you know what I mean? And I think in some ways they had complicated relationships with her too, because, we all kind of came up around the same time together, as friends and whatever. And, it was a sad day for them, but also weird. And, those are kind of the people that wanted to be there with me. And it was a weird thing, because we rolled up to a cemetery, first of all, to the cemetery where my grandmother is buried, who I wasn't even invited to the funeral, which is a whole other thing. Like I said, my family is very complicated in that sense. Like they all either hated me or really loved me or hated me 5 minutes later, my whole life. So, first of all, I'm going to this, excuse me, but fucking assholes, fucking grave. My grandmother, she really was a total piece of shit. I don't have a problem saying that. But, this is where my mom wanted to be buried. I didn't even know where she was buried, so I showed up here. The fucking, funeral director, like, pulls out my mom's ashes in like a red velvet bag, and we walk over, to the headstone or whatever, and he's digging this hole, and then he grabs my mom's ashes and he fucking drops them on the ground, drops them, and just like like we all looked at each other like, what the fuck, you know? Picks him back up, is trying to take him out of the bag again, drops him again, and at this point you could tell he feels weird, he's sweating because he's just, like he's just totally disrespected my mom's ashes twice in a row, then he proceeds to bury him and just, pulling away from it, it was just like, I couldn't really do anything but laugh about it because it was just so fucking morbidly weird, and the whole thing was just such a fucking overwhelmingly bizarre just experience, having to say goodbye to my mom who just it was whatever it was, I'm glad that we like, fix things, a little bit, before she passed away. But, I just came home and I recorded the vocals to it and finished the song. And it was just, I don't know, it's just about those complicated relationships, like, and, how fucked up they can be, but they still hurt, having to say bye to somebody, even if they put you through like some of the worst shit you ever been through, it's just a really bizarre, probably too long of an explanation, but I thought, like the whole thing was just weird, you know. And yeah, I guess that's what it's about, you know.
No, man, but the same thing that we were talking about earlier, it sucks to go through shit like that, but at least you told yourself like, you know what, like I got to do something with this, or gonna go a bit crazy.
Yeah.
So you use that
Yeah.
energy for something beneficial to yourself. Like you said, it was therapeutic, and for your listeners, for your audience too, they got a good piece of art out of it as well.
Yeah. That incidentally is probably one of my more favorite songs I've ever made, because it's probably the closest I've ever come to sounding like I actually want to sound on a recording. You know what I mean? Like, if they could all be like that, that'd be great, But I think that, it's one of those things. I was really feeling something that day, I guess. So, I don't know.
Yeah, because you're like in a this just powerful state of emotion, and
Yeah.
it resonates through. Okay, I'm gonna say a little backstory for number one, because um, this is the first song that I got into to your music by, and to this day, whenever it comes on, I'm always jamming the fuck out of it, and um, I'm already like fuck, I'm already like tense to know because you're probably like,
Oh no.
oh. Um, but this is the song that I mentioned that that girl that I had the fling with in high school, that she shared this song by you and Cool Runnings, and just I was just like, as soon as I heard it, I was like, what the fuck is this? This is awesome. Burnout. The reason it's my number one as well, because besides that, is because at the time, I had the short fling with her, but at the same time, I was like on this on and off relationship with this other girl, and to this day, she was the only girl that I was with for a long time. Was with her for almost like 5 years,
Mhm.
and towards the end of high school, I was, being real stupid and smoking a lot, and uh, that song resonated with me more because it was like actually happening in real time with that girl, and things were falling apart with us, and I'm just smoking about it, just trying to smoke it off as if it's nothing, but at the same time, like it's obviously just crushing me. And so whenever that song would come out, I'm like, holy shit, this song's about me, man.
Yeah. That is actually that one's a funny story. Yeah, I told you I was playing in that band Robangs. So that was one of the ones that I kind of was trying to push on them to like play with that band. And it came about because initially when I before I started playing in that band, I was asked by them if I would fill in for somebody because that big opportunity happened for them because Patrick Carney of the Black Keys like wanted was putting the album out and they were going to have to go on tour, but the problem was is that they had a member who was going to school for engineering and he he couldn't go on the tour. So they called me up and they asked me if I would do it, if I would fill in for him. And I said, yeah, I was like, because I really liked the band already because they were a local band and like I would go to all their shows, we were kind of like, like I don't know what the word is, like kind of both always kind of being at each other's shows or whatever, but I always thought they were way better than anything I was doing, you know what I mean? It was like they were kind of like, every time they come out with a song, I'd be like, fuck. You know what I mean? I'd be like I gotta make something, you know what I mean? It was that kind of thing. Like I literally like, I'll say this like Ryan, the primary songwriter of that band, like I still to this day, like he's just like it's one of those things you ever like really admired somebody as a songwriter and known them personally and like it just pisses you off that you can't be as good as them. You know what I mean? And it always really bothered me. And then when they asked me to play with them, I was like, fuck, like I was literally like I'm prefacing what I'm about to tell you with this so you understand this. But like I was so adamant about being fucking awesome when I joined this band because I was joining like they wanted me to play guitar, and I was like I had to level up, because like I was a good guitar player, but the stuff that they were doing, their guitar player, that they had that the dynamic in that band was, it was very like heavy on dual guitar like harmonies. Like it was kind of an unusual thing. Like they were kind of like Pavement, but like hyper Pavement or something like Pavement, but like more like way more interesting or something. But the guitar parts were really hard, and it was like fast shit that I was just not used to playing. So I was like woodshedding hard, like every day, like playing to this fucking album that I already loved, and it had been released like a year earlier. It just got picked up by an actual label like a year after it was put out, and I don't think anybody was intending to like be professional musicians or anything, it just kind of happened. So I was like, I mean, I was in my room, like playing his fucking album for like 8 or 9 hours a day, like straight, like trying to be like fucking Yngwie Malmsteen on guitar, like just like really going hard, outside of my zone to the point like I was like getting really good, you know. And this was like months before I even went to a practice with them. So like you got to understand, like my whole intention was to walk in that room and like them be like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? So I was like really going hard on this. And the guy who had asked me was a drummer, this guy Chris. And this weird thing happened. At the time, I had gotten this job. I was working at a radio station, and Facebook had just come out. Like And I put this thing on Facebook saying like, uh, my job's hiring if anybody needs a job. And this girl like said, "Where is it? I'm coming in to apply or whatever." And I ended up training her. And it was this girl that I knew kind of because I knew at some point she had dated this Chris guy, the drummer in the band. And it's kind of a weird thing, like, like I trained her and she's like, "I'm going home with you." And we ended up hanging out or whatever. And one thing, we ended up dating, and this is still like months before I even played with the band or whatever.
Mhm.
And come to find out, after a couple months of us dating or whatever, that like he was still seeing her, and I didn't know, the dude in that played drums. And I didn't know, but I was already like involved in a relationship with this person, like, and I couldn't just like break off a relationship because of some band I was temporarily playing guitar in, and this dude was fucking pissed. Like, I didn't know what their relationship was, that they had dated all through high school and that it was like this thing, because I didn't really know him well enough to know his like personal life or whatever. So it ended up being this wild fucking thing where when I started practicing with him, like, he fucking hated me. He was like throwing drumsticks at me at practice and shit. And it was like this huge deal. But they still wanted me to go on this tour because I had like, but it was only temporary at the time, so it didn't, wasn't like a huge deal, but like even like it was just impossible. Like, he was calling me and screaming at me, like really upset, just, and it was like this really weird thing where like, like I feel like it's wrong for me to, you know what I mean, at this point, if this is a temporary thing, what I mean, end a relationship with somebody, you know like, and it ended up being this weird thing where she, we started touring, and, I ended up breaking up with her. And, I ended up like actually joining the band for real, after this temporary thing, because this dude never came back, and then it was like this weird thing. She didn't want to date me anymore. She wanted to date him again. And then it was like, this weird dynamic was going on while all of these like great successes were happening for the band, The song was like written about this situation, you know what I mean? And like, because I think even again after she bounced back and forth, it was just like this thing, and it was this person who was like fucking up our whole band, you know what I mean? With this indecisiveness that like obviously I was too young and stupid to realize, like I should have just fucking joined the band and just that been it, you know what I mean? But when you're young and you're dumb and you're whatever, you're just not really thinking about, reality and what's really going on. And that whole song was just about that situation. And you know just ultimately us both in the band just realizing like, what the fuck, dude, like this is stupid, like, you know what I mean, like, yeah, like obviously like this is like the one thing we have going for us, as musicians right now, and we're worried about this thing that has nothing to do with the band. And like, meanwhile we're doing things that like we like never thought we'd ever be doing, you know what I mean? Like, I never would have thought that I would have been going to the places I went with them, doing the kind of shit, recording in studios and fucking going on these like crazy tours, like, in hindsight it seems so dumb, but that was like probably the first song that like, that I made, you know, since I had started making music by myself, that like I actually thought was like something that like was like a real emotion or something, you know what I mean? Like, so on one hand it was like, it was awful, whatever, it was stupid, but that song, like it really, that was the one that like people always wanted to hear. It was never like, that was always a song that like we pretend to be finished and people would be like, one more, and then we pull that song out. And I really did like that song actually, you know, and lyrically it is kind of childish now in hindsight, it's like real like emo silly, like talking about like you're gonna hurt, like that kind of shit. But at the time, like it like, you know, I felt like I was really, like my revenge was, like being able to say something and that many people identify with it, So in some
Yeah.
ways, that was kind of my fuck you. Like, maybe it's not the healthiest thing, to think of a song like a fuck you. I'm sure like, that's hella toxic, but at the time, like that, I don't know, that is what it is.
No, the lyrics are just, oh man. To this day, I'm like always finding myself thinking about the last parts of it and the beginning parts too. Like you're saying that they're emo and that they're kind of a fuck you, but I think of it more as a dude that is just super aware of the shitty situation he's in, and like he knows that um that like, oh, you should have chose me, baby girl.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I mean, really, yeah, like that's totally what it is. I mean, yeah, I guess I probably could have condensed it to something like that, but there is a story there, and it like it really, I guess, thinking about it probably is, really that. Like you fucked up. Like,
Yeah, but the yeah, so I resonate with the whole song and the story of it,
yeah.
especially that last part too, where you're just saying, and I'll be at home along with the lights out, completely
That's
stoned.
that's what I was
Like,
doing.
yeah,
Like, I mean, like literally that's like what was happening when I made that. Like, I was like sitting in the dark, like, like playing this shit, like, and it just, I always thought it was really cool how the guitar and that the chords, I don't normally use like open chords like that in a song, but for some reason, like they just sound so huge on it. Still, I listened to it not that long ago and was like, damn, it's all right. I was really into the idea of using synthesizers instead of bass when I was doing a lot of that cool running stuff because, obviously I was like really influenced by the band I was playing in at that time. I'm not even gonna try and hide it, because, I learned a lot from that dude Ryan. Like that dude was a fucking shredder. Again, I've never been like a straight shredder. I've always just been able to write a song, you know what I mean? But like I really fucking like that dude. Some people are just wired differently, you know what I mean? They have that like it really comes natural to them to do like, something. I was trying to find some kind of middle ground, where it was like, I don't necessarily like trying to make like super technical music or anything. Like it's probably more like layered or whatever. But I'd definitely say I was taking a lot of influence to that dude because he really, showed me, the value of synth bass in a way that like I had never really heard anybody use it. And it sounds so stupid and like to say that about that song because it literally is the same thing throughout the entire song, but like, if it had been a normal bass, it probably wouldn't have been as cool. You know what I mean? Like when we played it live, obviously we used a real bass, but like, something about the way it sounds on that recording, it just like, I don't know, it's just like, like the fucking the drums and shit,
yeah.
like it all kind of locks in together in a way. And that was something I kind of learned from him is like using you know, instruments in more percussive ways and having them, kind of like work, maybe less like guitars or bass or something and more like a giant drum kit or something, you know. Like I try to imagine, bass kind of, or usually just most instruments, I try to think of them as more like percussive instruments so that they kind of like, you know, play in between the drums and stuff. And I always thought that was kind of cool about that song. It's like very simple. It's like the same thing for 6.5 minutes, but for some reason it's like, when that guitar comes in, that like it hits some kind of weird thing. It's like hypnotic or something.
I remember in my old Facebook, I had you on there as well, and I don't know if it was like a photo you shared or something, but pretty much like I just saw like a like a big
Space
uh
Station.
PlayStation. Yeah, just
No,
like all the
Space
keyboards
Station. Yeah.
and what was it like drum machines, like all sorts of shit that you had. I was like, damn, man. Pedals, like
Yeah.
all
Yeah, that was stupid. That was really dumb. No, I'm gonna be honest, like that was like the dumbest thing I ever did in my life, you know, like you know, I like, it really is a thing, I'm sure you've heard of it, gear acquisition syndrome or something. You know what though? I feel like most people that get that, they don't actually make music though. That's where we differ because like when I had all that shit, like all I fucking did was go down there and make music. So I don't feel that bad about it. But yeah, I sold most of that shit. It's kind of one of those things, like I came into some money and then I blew it all on a bunch of shit that I thought what the idea was is that I was going to make a studio. That was my idea and like I was going to record all my friends and shit, but little did I know that like a lot of them cannot be bothered to sit in a room and record. You know what I mean? I thought it was going to be a thing. I'd be like, here, use my studio. You know what I mean? Like, you're a band. You know what I mean? But like, it ended up being a thing. Like, it's just nobody was as interested in doing that as I was. And then I just had all this fucking shit that like I just, obviously, you know it, it's like one of those things. I was in a state of grief and I just went fucking nuts, like totally stupid, balls to the wall, just like getting shit. But I did make a lot of fucking music with it, so I don't feel too bad about it. But yeah, no, nobody was really as interested as I thought they would be. I don't even think I recorded one band during that period and never ended up finishing the recordings. And the band broke up, and I don't think they ever even asked me for them. And then there was another band I was playing, and I think they ended up like scrapping everything that I had recorded and ended up recording with someone else. So,
you got rid of a lot of that gear you said.
oh yeah, I mean, this is like I don't know if you can see, this is like all I have now. Just what's on there. Yeah, I kept all the stuff that like I was using to play live with because I didn't really need any of that shit. I mean, after a while you get so many synthesizers, you realize you really only need one or two that can do the specific thing that they do that you like that you use, and those are the ones I kept.
That's what I was gonna like ask that, God forbid some disaster or something happens and you're only able to like salvage one piece of gear, which one do you
Yeah,
think you would like, run towards?
my computer. Honestly, like, because you don't need this shit, really. Nobody really needs this shit. Like, honestly, like I don't think that I couldn't have done any of the same shit without. It's just I like to have these things. I like having like my hands on stuff. It's a bit different like clicking a mouse around and turning a cutoff knob on a synthesizer than just like reaching up for it. It's a different thing though. There are some things that I wish I had held on to, but a lot of it doesn't really matter. All you really need is a guitar and like a computer or something, you know. I honestly say that. Like I'm one of those people that believes like, when somebody says like they have to have something to make art, like they're thinking too hard about it, because you can make art with anything, and if you can't make art out of anything, maybe you don't really want to make art. You know what I mean? It's one of those things, because most of that stuff that you like that you're telling me like really means something to you was literally recorded with the mic on a MacBook. Like Burnout, like I don't even know that the drums were recorded with a real mic. Like I honestly think that that whole fucking song was done with the mic on on one of those white clamshell fucking MacBooks. You know what I mean? Before they even made the aluminum ones, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, there you go. That's proof that you don't really need fancy schmancy stuff. Like just
Nobody
the
does.
will.
It depends on what kind of quality you're trying or what sound you're going for or whatever, but I guarantee you, I mean, like you could do all the same shit with software and it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah.
Crack plugins. Just get you a laptop and some crack plugins, you know. Like if you can't afford it, you know, steal it.
Last question is what uh what stuff are you working on? Or is there anything else we could like expect from the future of New Romantics?
I am working on some new stuff. It's a little bit different. It's like it's more along the lines of like some of the newer songs that were on the album, I guess, like Hard to Let You Go and Let You Down, like the kind of more industrial kind of sounding aspect of it. I have a couple things like that. I haven't quite figured out like how I'm gonna sing over them yet, but I do have some new stuff. I think the next thing's probably gonna be like an EP though. So, I was working on it today actually, a new thing. So that'll probably be, you know, pretty soon because I feel like I have enough music to work on with that to have something soon. So I think it's just dependent on whether I can finish, you know, the words. The words are always the thing that take a minute. But yeah.
Right on, man. Well, I'm excited to hear it. And thank you so much, Brandon, for talking with me. And I'll send you the link as soon as I edit this and put it out. But yeah,
Oh,
man, thank you so much for chatting with me.
send me your address too. I'll see if I can find one of those records and send you one. And yeah.
Badass, bro. I will do that. Enjoy your meal, man, and take care.
All right, man.
Peace.
Later.